Welcome to this recording of Pat Rodegast channeling the spirit of Emmanuel on April 1st, 1987. Subscribe to this channel and we'll let you know when we upload new workshops or other materials from the Emmanuel archives. Now, enjoy this meeting with Emmanuel.
I am sure by now you have all heard the phrase, you create your own reality, often when you least want to hear it. When something catastrophic or something unpleasant has taken place and you allow yourselves for a moment to wring your hands and to say, why me? There is always someone, invariably, who helpfully suggests to you, without the least bit of tact, that in some manner you have, after all, created it. That is not maintaining the fine line. There is a portion of each one of you that would take the world into your arms and in so doing give all the love that you possess to create a world of balance, of peace, of beauty, of health, of joy. And yet there is at the same moment the part of you that has agreed to become human, who would, if this should take place, say with greatest wisdom, what are you doing that for? Because now I have to find another way to process what I have come to learn with, to grow through, and to transform. I am saying this in order to remind you that there is in a lifetime that center of balance, that center of understanding that seems to honor both the creator and the created, that must allow the life to unfold and at the same time to hold the perfect balance of awareness that says what is happening to me is because I have, in the name of my own self-love, created it, chosen it to happen to me, without in any manner attempting to erase the experience. How does one do this? For there certainly are moments when fear would remove any concept of centered balance. When fear says to you, this is catastrophe, and you are absolutely helpless. You have become victimized, and in like manner you must now turn to victimize others if you are ever to find justice. And one would then say, attempting to find balance again, well, of course, that is probably right. For is not justice a part of self-love, and am I not to walk the center path of love? And then there comes moments when all things are viewed from the point of self-loving, when no matter what it is that is taking place in your life, holds within it perfection. Where you can perceive the struggles, perhaps, of both yourself and your loved ones as simply love unfolding to find itself in another atmosphere, in another adventure. What causes you to swing from one place of experience to another? All of you have awakened some mornings knowing everything in your world was perfectly all right. And you have awakened for seemingly no apparent reason several mornings later, recognizing there is nothing in your world that is all right. And the reality is nothing has changed. In the factual reality, nothing has changed. I have been asked many times, how once my heart is open, do I keep it open? How once when I realize the perfection of this balance of which you speak, how do I maintain that balance? What do I do when sudden grief comes to me, or sudden pain, or sudden loss of any kind, or sudden joy and abundance? What do I do when I awaken one morning and seemingly for no reason at all what I knew was true has been lost and I cannot find it? Your life is a adventurous, courageous experience. For you have come from perfect balance, from the oneness, into this planetary schoolroom, finding yourself in what has been represented as chaos, looking to find reason to explore cause and effect, to give yourself a sense of empowerment. And the moment that the mind in its linear conceptualization says, now I have it, if I do this, this takes place, and if I do this, that takes place there, now I have in some manner achieved control of chaos, at that moment you move to another place of recognition where you say, but if I live in my linear mind controlling chaos, I haven't left chaos at all. I have simply given chaos reality. One never stops the upward spiraling of learning. And when you just believe you have achieved a plateau of understanding, that is not the time to rest. That is not the time to say, good, I need no longer aspire. I can simply build my home here and live out my days in perfect equanimity. For the moment that a plateau is reached and understanding becomes clear and you experience the yes of it, that is the time to prepare to move on. For you have not come to remain in that center of balance. You have come to move, to grow, to spiral upward, and to continue to create through eternity. One does not create from a plateau of equanimity. One takes a breath, certainly. One can enjoy a bit of respite. But you are here as gods to move in your creation. You are not here to sit on a throne of completed task. From the moment that you are conceived until moments after you die, your entire life is designed to serve the God within you in his or her experience of creation. To play, if you will, with the educational tools of your human world. Does that sound frivolous? When there is so much suffering, it is not. Some of the educational tools you have chosen are very stern indeed from the viewpoint of human experience. But just beyond, when you have finally decided that you no longer require this particular costume in this particular schoolroom at this particular time, and you have allowed yourself to release your physicality and to move to the greater light and freedom and remembering of who you are, at that moment, whatever has transpired in your life, however ghastly and grim the human mind would label it, to the soul in freedom, it has been a moment of adventure. So when life comes to you seemingly knocking on your bolted door, or your door left invitingly ajar, and offers you something that you simply do not believe you want, do not too hastily throw away the gift or attempt to avoid it or to shut it out, but to take whatever comes to you and hold it in the loving wisdom that says, I have in some manner given this to myself. Perhaps I don't understand now why, but I will be willing, in the name of self-love, to sit with this, to examine it, to allow it to unfold, to let it speak to me and allow myself to hear, to listen, so that should I not perceive all that I have offered myself, at least the next offering will be less cumbersome, less perhaps seemingly overpowering. What I am saying here is this: you all have had experiences in your life, all of you, regardless of how closely you have moved to enlightenment, where you have said, why me? What is this coming in my life now for? I don't want it. Take a moment, if you will, now, simply to allow one of those experiences to present itself to you. And from the perspective of now, sitting in this room, obviously absolutely safe, obviously having gone through that experience, let yourself hold it in your imagination and examine it. Let it speak to you. Ask it questions. Let yourself put aside the judgments with which you have regarded this experience and set it free. And let that freedom speak to you. Holding inner dialogue is a most useful tool. It gives you absolute privacy and absolute freedom to examine, to explore, to speak, to react. And should you come upon a piece of this circumstance that cannot seem to explain itself to you, that you still in some manner, do not understand, let yourself take a moment to write on the card that I believe you have been given a question concerning this. And I will, to the best of my ability, help you to find an answer that perhaps has eluded you to this moment. Emmanuel saying, before we begin, I would like to remind you of the obvious, which is that everyone's question cannot be answered. And yet, at another level that is not so obvious, of course, everyone's question will be answered. So be willing to listen beyond the vocabulary of your own question. There is an essence to the questioning, and the essence goes far beyond the human experience and the vocabulary, therefore then it is chosen to honor the human experience. For instance, there are many of you in this room who are holding within you pain and question about the why of that pain. Will wash over many inconsistencies and lies, but that is unfortunate. Yes to your life completely. Yes to whatever you have created without any need at all to understand it, and to sit with that pain, to sit with that dysfunction, without any expectation at all. For one does not love in the hopes that something will change. One loves simply because one loves. No strings attached. And allow miracles to happen. Miracles, so the mind would call them, cannot happen if the mind insists on reason. If fear says we must not have chaos here, it must all be reasonable, it must all be safe. And again, it is one of those very subtle lines of balance. You do not love in order to take away the pain, because if this be your motive, regardless of how subtle, you are not loving, you are fearing. But to say yes because you know it is your essence, and in some manner it is your soul's desire, simply to say yes, will bring what fear says you must have, but you cannot honor fear in the bringing. Subtleties are part of your curriculum now. Things are no longer so blatant in your world. It may seem so. It may seem that the good and the bad, the dark and the light, the enemy and the friend, the polarization seems to be more extreme, but it is not. Within yourselves, because of the polarization, you are being given a most demanding path to walk. For you know that within the shining hero there is a fallible human being. And you know within the evil enemy there is a child. You know these things. You are too sophisticated. You have lived too many lives too long to be blinded by duality. And so you are moving to oneness in this way. You are moving to the center of balance. Do so in your own lives. Okay.
I don't understand why I had my automobile accident. I wasn't hurt. Was my learning, what was my learning supposed to be?
Well, one very obvious thing is that you can have an automobile accident and not get hurt. That what seems to be chaos isn't chaos at all, is it? and that there are those who can quite simply slip and fall on their own kitchen floor and die. It is to give you a sense both of value, self-value, protection, purpose, and freedom. That's it.
What is violence and anger?
The voices of fear. Two of the many voices of fear. And beneath fear, there is always the voice of love. The voice of love that wasn't heard. The voice of love that does not dare speak again in its own tenor, in its own vocabulary, in its own sweetness. Violence and anger are the defenses of a wounded child that say, you did not hear me, you will not honor me, and my heart is broken. And because your world has given more permission to violence and anger than it has to love, consider that. Because violence and anger are more socially acceptable than love, this is the language that is spoken. Because fear has been given more credence than faith, then fear is heard. Something to be considerate of. When someone speaks to you in anger, look beneath. Let your hearts hear what is really being said. Do not let your fear honor that fear, and so a useless, senseless dialogue exists. Go beneath. Ask yourself, where is the broken heart? And why can it not speak? What have I, in my humanness, presented that allows only anger? And where am I, since everyone is a mirror for someone else, where am I afraid to speak my love? And where do I use anger as the acceptable vocabulary of self-representation?
Do I dare trust that this situation can be solved in a loving way, that regardless of potential for hurt, it will be okay for all concerned? Or should I close it off once and for all?
You know perfectly well that closing it off isn't going to work. As long as there is a breath within you that says there must be another way, you will explore the other way. In the name of love. Absolutely, in the name of love. Oh, perhaps also in the name of curiosity a little bit. After all, life is an adventure. But in the name of love. Can love resolve this conflict? When love is there, there is no conflict. There are only clear decisions made with the love of self, the primary consideration, and this is as it must be. Until you can speak self-love, not self-defense, not arrogance, but self-caring, until you can honor self to that point, then there is always the confusion that can create hurt. But the moment that you can say, This is who I am, this is what I respect, and this is what I need, without any need for defense, you will be amazed and delighted how quickly all things fall into place. The voice of loving truth carries with it a most remarkable power. It brings all else into bold relief. When the light of truth enters, all distortion is cast upon the wall in its vast grotesqueness of shadow, and one simply perceives it. No words need to be spoken beyond those of self-representation, for everyone without exception is able to hear truth.
I have stopped asking why, but I find myself asking when. There is an excitement and feeling of more to come, and at the same time, I want to stay in the moment. Is it guilt?
Staying in the moment will get you to the when immediately. When one looks ahead out of the moment to a future when, one loses everything except anxiety. That's the answer.
Good answer.
I have experienced great pain in the past 2 years from 2 car accidents, and from that pain I have experienced miracles, love, joy, and peace. I am actually grateful for the pain and the gifts it brought to me, but still I wonder, when will the pain stop?
When you can give yourself those gifts without the pain. The price has been high, but necessary, as you know, to allow yourself to begin to believe in your worthiness to receive, to experience, to know. Now, dear one, are the books balanced in your human bookkeeping? Can you allow all to be open and giving and loving and kind and tender just because you are who you are? I truly say to you, in that moment of self-loving and giving, the pain will cease. For it will no longer be of any use to you. Okay.
Why did I have polio as a child? And why have I had a series of health crises recently?
This answer is not going to be so simple, for it goes far back into history, and those of you who know me know how I find history difficult, for it takes us out of the now. Nevertheless, I will begin. Bear with me. When I speak of time past, I only speak of it to the chronological mind. To the consciousness of the soul, it is all now. This is important for you to understand. For if one is to say, in the past, one seems to believe that that no longer exists. But as long as there is connection, it exists now as now. But it cannot be understood by mind except as in the past, if you follow me. There was a time, centuries ago. Oh, I got in the way, because he doesn't usually do this. I started to listen. Excuse me, I got to get out of the way again. When you walked the earth as a giant of a man, I do not mean in a strange or distorted sense, but as someone empowered by the grace of beauty, clarity, physical prowess, a knight among knights, a man among men, a leader among leaders. And in that time of prowess, such as came to you was accepted by all as your just due. That because at that moment you had become who you were, there was no longer any necessity to question what it is you wanted and what were your rights. You became, in a word, arrogant, separated from the initial intent, which was of service, of kindness, of leadership in the name of love. Now, this is not an unusual human experience for those with such wealth of capacity and talent. And yet to you, and remember I said to another that perhaps the last stairway of death must be walked alone. To you at that time, as death came to you, also came awareness. And you held yourself in great disdain. For as you mounted the last flight of stairs, your heart broke. For you had been seduced by all that should, in your mind, have served the oneness, the love. In order then, now hear me softly, for I must speak in absolutes because your language speaks in absolutes, and there is much, much more to this I cannot say. In order to avoid any such deviation, you came to this life with a determination to walk the path that you have chosen. What does illness mean to you? Incapacity, inability, self-denial, restriction, a place to hide, a reason for hiding. But because you are who you are, there is a greatness in you. That you have come to this point to know, to understand, to perceive. Not because of the greatness of who you were, but the greatness of who you are at this moment is waiting to blossom, even, yes, because of the experiences that you have chosen in this life. Now, for a moment, come with me, and of course everyone is welcome to join us. Close your eyes. And let yourself move to the self that does not define itself in physical language. You know this place. Move to it again. The I am, not of the physical planet, but the I am that is sitting in this body, but that is not of this body. Find that I am without recrimination, without limiting. But go to that and breathe with it. This is not the I am of the body nor of the mind, but is the I am of the greatness, of the remembering, of the love, of the truth, of the infinite beauty. It is the you have always known and dared not honor, not for many, many years. Will you now ask that you, that I am, in silence, what it is now that is needed in order to allow the beginning of the honoring of that? For there is no danger of misrepresentation now. You are safe. You are safe to let that beauty, that perfection, free. And sit with this and hear it as clearly as you are able. And ask this I am for a sign or a way or a word that will allow you to touch it again in this deep way. Ask for a key, a passageway, so that you can find your way back here again. Your life's work has just begun. It is beginning to begin now. Do not attempt to understand or to formulate or to structure it, for you cannot. For it would exceed your wildest imagination. Simply be with this part of you and allow the rest to unfold. When you have received a key, a password, a memory, a passageway, hold it consciously in your mind. For it will be quickly forgotten in the chaos of fear that is waiting outside the door. Okay. He said, I want to wait a moment until you all get back here. Can be done very simply again by allowing yourselves to close your eyes just for a moment and to connect with your breathing, to become aware again of being both the observer and the observed, and the very fine line of equilibrium that is there, available to you, that will ultimately be the only place that you will walk, where you will be both fully present in your life and fully aware that you are creating every moment of it by the choice of either love or fear. I realize as I say that I place it into a deceptively simple formula. Simple, yes, but simple in the act of allowing it, of creating it, and of living by it. No, not because the choice of love over fear is difficult, but because the habit and superstition of fear is so deeply ingrained that as with all deeply ingrained habits, one simply finds oneself choosing fear before one is aware one has chosen anything at all. Very well, we will begin.
Is the date of one's death determined before the soul enters into a lifetime? Is it set, or is it decided during the lifetime? Can it be changed once it's decided?
Before one is born, one is not concerned at all with linear time. One is only concerned with the opportunities to explore certain areas that call the heart. When one has decided again to become human, you are called by love into this human form. You are not forced, you are not dragged, you are not required in the name of balancing of books. You are called in the name of love. And love calls in its own sweetness and in its own uniqueness to each one of you to serve it in certain ways. When you have completed the task for which you have come, you will choose either to remain, having perhaps found in your service, in your expansion of awareness, another avenue to travel, and therefore then you will find a life-altering experience, a crossroad, if you will, and you will choose another way. Or you will at that moment, having completed the task, choose to leave. This can be when you are 2 years old, when you are 22, or when you are 102. For where this quality of consciousness exists, there is simply no time and space. And so you will enter and you will honor what has called you, and you will fulfill the response, and then you will either decide to leave, or again, if you feel so fit and still enamored of the world, perhaps you will choose another circumstance. So can it be changed? Why, it was never hard fixed to begin with. And therefore, you who fear you're dying as you step into an airplane or an automobile, there is no need, for there is no time and place that the soul says, at this crossroad I will leave. Neither will you ever leave until you have completed what you have come to do. Now, the linear mind will say, well, then I'm not going to finish anything now. I won't even balance my checkbook until I'm 93. But that may be just exactly what you have come to do. So you see, in the name of fear, there is no understanding or no knowing what it is one can do to somehow circumvent what fear says is that awful moment of death. There is no need. What is prescribed as the awful moment of death to fear is to the heart's love simply going home. And of saying, yes, I've completed that semester. Now I'm going to go home and I'm going to rest. And I'm going to celebrate and going to see my family again. Those that I have known in other lives and loved as well as those in this. And then we will all come back again. And do you remember how it was when you were in grade school and you wondered what friend from third grade was going to be with you in fourth grade? And how close were you going to be able to sit with them in the room? Well, in a manner, dying and being reborn is much like that. for you leave a life, and yes, the human heart says, but I love you. Dis-ease indeed. Disquiet, terror, the fear of being full, lest someone in some manner tell you you ought not to be, or that in some manner your voice will hold the power that you are afraid it would have, were afraid it would have when you allowed this dysfunction to develop. To be suffocated, or the feeling of suffocation by the demands, the requirements, the expectation, and the terrors of others. I want to tell you something, and this applies to all of you, of course. You, as very small children, are the most heroic beings. For you sacrifice yourselves, you cripple yourselves, you mute yourselves in the name of love. For you can perceive what it is that others need, what it is they are afraid of, what their pain is, and you alter yourselves almost to extinction to serve those you love. A child, when they develop asthma, is allowing themselves to forego the natural fullness of empowerment of their own freedom, their own voice, their own breath. And they are saying, whether it may be obvious or subtle, I will suppress, I will allow myself to suffer, lest in some manner my fullness of voice and breath will cause you fear and will cause you harm and suffering. It is illusion, of course, to the mature mind. But the child is astute. And when the child is born, they know to whom they are coming. And in their infancy, they are still aligned with the greater knowing, and they perceive with accuracy that would astound the mind of you, the adult. Are you aware that every one of you as children saw spirits? Every one of you saw auras. Every one of you knew beyond the intellectual knowing. Every one of you honored love. Every one of you walked in your faith. That you were who now you attempt to become. That you were your dream of what you wish you were now. Where does the dream come from? Except from the memory. You cannot dream something that is not of you. So look to small children with great respect and remove from them as much as possible the burden they willingly take in the name of love to become what you want them to be, rather than who they really are. For this is what each one of you carry in your restrictions. In the name of love, you sacrificed yourselves. And now the pain of that sacrifice is saying, I hurt here, I cannot breathe, I am crippled, I am frightened. And so now you turn in therapy, forgive me, dear, you say. In anger, in resentment, to those who you say forced you to become, who denied you, who did all manner of things. But initially remember that your pain now, your self-denial now, was at that time an extreme act of love. And do not chastise yourselves or in any way dishonor yourselves, for you did what you did because at that moment love said, I must serve them in this way, they are in pain. My answer has gone a bit far afield of asthma, but not too far. You are afraid to take a deep breath. You are afraid to be empowered. You are afraid to speak. You are afraid to be heard. You are afraid to take your place. You are afraid to be you.
Will my cancer disappear? What attitude must I have to heal myself totally? What do I really need to do?
The first thing you really need to do is not care one fig whether it disappears or not. And that is the absolute essential ingredient. For if you are forcing it to disappear, as understandable as that may be, you are moving from fear, my dear one. And cancer is the voice of fear, as is every other disease of such magnitude and merit. So in order to completely free yourself of cancer, give complete permission to that cancer to be there. Say yes to it. The moment that you can embrace it in love, the moment that you can choose love over fear, in the presence of your cancer, the cancer will no longer have anything to say. But what it is said to you is, be aware. Be aware where you are hiding terror. Be aware where you are serving fear. You have so programmed your body before birth, and all of you have, in your genetic choosing and in the weaving of your physical costumes, you have all woven in fail-safe areas, a seam that will go, if you will, when things are too tight, when you need expansion, that will remind you. And so you created in your body this facility to create cancer, not necessarily to die from it, but to create it as a tap on the shoulder, as a reminder that says, you need to look another way. You need to consider another thing. You need to go more deeply into who you think you are and who you believe you ought to be, and find the realness of who you truly are, for it is needed now. Seldom do I say this, you will be fine, but you must walk the path you have chosen. You cannot skip a step. It is much too important.
Okay. Your work, Emmanuel, sounds like poetry. What is the source of great artists, such as the creativity of Mozart? Was Mozart born with the knowledge of his music, or was it channeled to him?
That's an interesting question. Both. You are all born with all wisdom, all knowledge. There is nothing in your world that is really new to you. Oh, your mind, your human personality may say, where did that come from? That's remarkable. But the heart says, oh, I know that. Mozart or such beings of genius, they come from histories that acquainted them with the vehicle for their inspiration, but the inspiration itself is them opening to the greater self and allowing it all to take place. Inspiration is slightly different than channeling. Let me see if I can formulate a definition. When one is inspired, one takes into oneself the memory that is waiting for all of you just beyond your linear mind. And in so inspiring then the vocabulary that soul has mastered through centuries of human experience is utilized to serve that inspiration. That is genius. When one simply reaches beyond one's human personality and agrees to step back a bit and allow the greater knowing to come through, that is channeling. If one were to take channeling and to utilize human vocabulary to express it through the humanness rather than to step the humanness aside, that would be creativity. Huh. Interesting. He just said, I thought you would find it so. Okay.
I have a daughter who has had a series of physical and emotional challenges since birth. She is nearly 20 now. What core insight could help me to facilitate her to whatever extent parental help is still appropriate in the near future and increase my own understanding?
That, of course, is primary. Oh, I don't mean that you don't want to help your child, but I mean that the understanding would facilitate your facilitating. Let us take a less roundabout approach. Physical difficulty is simply another means by which one grows. And though it, yes, is traumatic, it is difficult, it is not to be perceived as the identification of self. That is very important. It is simply another vocabulary for growth. I say that to you, and therefore for you, not necessarily in so many words, but in your knowing, to give to her the freedom to go beyond the definition that she has formulated as self through her physical struggles. When one has chosen a certain block of time and experience within which to grow, one becomes almost enamored of that experience as something that defines self. But she is not her physical difficulty. She is by no means to allow herself to be limited by that, but simply to say, some people walk up that stairway and some people walk up this. Some people take that highway and some people take this one. I chose that, but now I am here, and I intend to let that go and to no longer identify myself with that physical vehicle, the means by which I have come to this plateau of understanding. As parent, I urge you to assist her to clarify what it is she has come to understand. And wherever there is the sense within you that she is bouncing her self-identity off her human physical experience, I want you to take love into your heart and to say to her, no. That is not who you are. That is simply a means you have chosen. Okay.
My 18-year-old son will be released from jail soon. He will not be returning to our home. What can I do to aid him in his transition to independent living?
Love him, love him, love him. Set aside all judgment, dismiss all disappointment, open your arms, forgive him all things, for they need no forgiving, and love him.
Why did my husband's aunt make it a point before she died to see that we were separated? What was it about me she dislikes so much?
There is a convoluted but wondrous lesson here. To believe that anyone is so empowered that they can cause you and your husband to separate, that is lesson number one, my dear. For no one has any more power than another is willing to give them. Why then did this seem to be her determination, and why did she seem to dislike you so? This will stretch your minds a bit. Relax. As your teacher, she chose, by whatever human excuses and misdemeanors she gave herself, to represent to you a power that you must never allow again to affect you. She frightened you, and you allowed that fear to cause you to abdicate your own empowerment. And as a soul, she chose, and you chose, such a commingling at this time in her life. Why did she dislike you? She did not dislike you, but she disliked your fear. Fear is not to be perceived as something disgusting, something that is not worthy of kindness. This was her distortion. But yours must not be similar. You walk with fear, as many do, as though it is in some manner a civilized thing to do, as though it has about it a nicety, almost a pride, that perhaps you would not do such a thing. But there comes a moment when fear, with all its disguises, all its shoulds and shouldn'ts, all its rule books of behavior, must be challenged. For where you fear, you cannot love. And that is your pain. That is everyone's pain. Mm-hmm. What to do at this moment, simply choose love. Use that as a mantra. I choose love, I choose love. And you do not mean love of others to place you in servitude. It means love of self. For you cannot love another human being one iota more than you love yourself. Oh, you can act loving. You can know the vocabulary and behavior of love, but you cannot love another any more than you love yourself, and that is absolute rule across the board. So when you say to someone, I am afraid of you, and therefore, in some manner, I have given you the power to separate me in my marriage, look clearly with self-love and no recrimination at all as to what it is you have utilized as the vocabulary of love in your life. Was it not so, perhaps, and this is simply a suggestion, that there was something within you that saw the separation as perhaps not so detrimental? Was there a desire that her determination and seeming dislike fulfilled in you? How indeed did choosing fear help to serve you, because no one chooses fear unless there is a belief within them that fear is the thing to choose. The small child in each one of you chose fear because they were afraid to choose love. They believed that perfect love, which is what they are, what you all were when you were born, was what was cast out of the oneness. And the very small infant being cast from the oneness with mother, says, all I am is perfect love. Looks around the world and says, obviously this is no place for perfect love. And since one at that moment, knowing themselves to be perfect love, perceives themselves as unwanted and unsafe, at that moment fear walks in and says, here, take my hand. And so at that moment the child chooses fear, and every moment thereafter, when fear is chosen, it is chosen in the misconception that it will keep you safe. So what in the allowing of this most powerful aunt to break up your marriage seemed to the child within you the safe thing to do? It is a beginning for possible wondrous exploration. She holds you now in no bitterness or disdain. She never did. It was only fear that she disdains, and yet, and this is the perversity of human nature, she delighted in stirring it up. We will talk about that with her.
Okay. What are the Akashic records, and what relevance, if any, do they have for us?
The Akashic records are symbolic of the entire history of your human experience. What value do they have? Well, if they are perceived as written history, none at all. But as you can conceive of yourself in the eternal now, you hold within you in that moment absolute accessibility to anything that is of value to you, whether it was achieved centuries ago or a moment ago. You see, there is a quality of timelessness within timelessness that allows for no record keeping at all. What you have done is with you now in the form that you have been able to utilize it to honor now. For instance, and this will be a comfort to many of you, if in a past experience in this life or lives past, you have done some cruel, seemingly unforgivable act, the very moment that the growth that was available in that act, the learning, has been partaken of, that act ceases to exist. And all that remains in the eternal now is the benefit. So you need not wring your hands about Akashic records that, if they were able to be perceived, would read of past lives of heinous deed. Because in this moment, you are who you are. And you are the product of all that you have ever been. And you did not come here to suffer remorse, to repay debts, or even to allow someone you may have murdered to murder you. You have come to be who you are at this moment in the name of perfect love. So Akashic records, they are the mind's attempt to give form and substance and structure to what requires none at all, but that exists at your beck and call when you are willing to live in the moment.
Emmanuel, speak to us who are adult children of aging parents about how best to be there for them without getting hooked into the old parent-child tapes. Many, many thanks.
You're saying you read that with a great deal of pathos.
Thank you for noticing.
Aging parents walk a very fine line as well, do they not? For they are human beings moving towards a time of life that frightens them for the most part. Certainly yours are frightened. And yet they believe that they must also remain faithful to the role of parent. You thought children were the only ones who were burdened with that responsibility. What I would offer as a gift to aging parents is to set them free from any responsibility of parenting. That they owe you nothing. Give them absolute permission to live their lives as they will. Let them go. You no longer need a parent of any form or shape or behavior, and they do not need a child that looks to them to fulfill a need, for you are adults as well. There comes a time when the role of parent and child requires altering. I do not say to cast out the child, no. The love is always there. But it must be allowed a new vocabulary, a stretching, if you will, a growing. For when the small child perceives the parent, they perceive what is absolutely necessary for them at that moment, a caretaker, a tender teacher, if they be so fortunate, someone to love, to guide them, and someone that allows them to give their love as well. Most important. As the child grows, it becomes apparent as they reach the teen years that they are beginning to struggle with that old image. They do not want such caretaking in such restrictive, demanding ways. They want not to be taught such a narrow text, but to be given, therefore, then, respect, opportunity, lateral. Though certainly, yes, the bed, the warm smile, the tender arms, yes, that too. For they need at that time a place to return to lick their wounds, to know that they are safe before they venture forth again in that strange land of almost maturity. And then when that phase has passed and they proclaim themselves adult, then parents allow them to be adults, and children allow your parents to allow you to be adult. And in so doing, then the relationship becomes human to human, friend to friend, love to love, companion to companion, but no longer parent to child. For you are not a child. Now then comes the transition that habit, mind, fear says must not take place, which is to say, I do not honor you as mother, father anymore. I honor you as human being. Do not call upon me to honor you as parent. And there are those who say, how can you say that? These people are old. They are moving from this life. You must honor them as parent, but you cannot, and this is your struggle, because you are no longer child in that vocabulary, in that placement of characters. The play has changed. Go to them then as human beings, whom you love as you love, respect as you respect, want to be with or do not want to be with, which as is in your truth as this moment as adults. You will give them then all that you have to give them, which is your truth. And there is no other gift to give. There never was, and there never will be. And as those who move towards death begin to become aware of what it means to be human, their perceptions also sharpen to what it means to be in truth. Call upon them to behave in certain manner, but if you will release them from the role of parent, you will find them to be excellent teachers to you. For if they can be given permission, and this can only be given through your giving yourself permission, to, if you will, say it like it is, then they will be an excellent mirror for you, and you for them. For there will no longer be need for role-playing, no longer be need for subterfuge, no longer be need for fear. And you will walk to them with the respect they are due and with the disrespect they are due. And you will say in the language of love, this is how I feel. This is who I am. Who are you? Let us talk. Let us be here in truth, as we have never been able to be here in truth, except in the very beginning of my life. For we have not allowed the change as it took place because we were afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of stepping out of the role that seemed to be the role that allowed what love was there to flow. But that is illusion. You came not to be child, but to be soul with soul in this lifetime. And this is for everyone. How to be with aging parents? Why, in your truth, in your delight, therefore, in your gratitude, in your respect, or in whatever else is there, but not from the point of view of the disgruntled child. That is not your truth.
What one word would explain what I have learned to this date?
Love, but not in one word. For love has walked the dappled path of light and shade. And what you have learned to this date is that love deserves more light than shade.
When I was very young, 5 or so, my parents were having a violent argument. My mother ran into my bedroom where I was sleeping and locked the door. My father broke the door down. I cannot remember anything of what happened after that. I probably did not go back to sleep. But what did happen? How can I release the terror that has kept me under the blankets for so long?
What happened was there was a crash, and you saw the man you loved, your father, in the red brilliance of rage. For you saw auras then, not since then, for it frightened you, but to that moment you saw. You felt the fear that was in the room, You saw the violence. You saw him grab your mother by the shoulders and shake her. And you heard yourself scream. And you saw the pain on their faces as they turned to realize what they had done to you. And your heart wept for them as you wept for yourself. And the confusion of the pain caused you to push it aside. For you did not know how to say what you needed to say. I'm waiting to see if you're going to say what you need to say. No? He's saying to help you to facilitate the recollection, which will then allow you to take the covers from your head. Let yourself feel not only the fear but the rage of that child, the disappointment, the recrimination, the wisdom of the child that said, "How dare you? Look what you have done to my life. You promised to be my parents and you crash into my room like squabbling children. You disturbed my sleep. You frightened me. You have betrayed a trust." Wow. The child could not say that. The child did not dare. The child was afraid of her own rage as much as the rage of the parents.
Okay. Where should my family live? We are mom, dad, and 4 children.
In a house with 5 bedrooms. I don't know if I was going to say anything else, right? There are no shoulds. And there is no one place that is right. You seek for magic of that nature. There is no magic. Wherever you take your love is where you belong. Wherever you are most comfortable, live there until something else beckons, and do not be afraid to move.
Okay.
Will my lover come back?
Perhaps. But if so, your lover will be quite changed, and it must be so. For when such circumstances perpetuate such movement, you must look to find where within you have allowed this, you have caused this, you have created it, and why. If your lover returns, allow it to be a return not to the same old place and the same old purpose and the same old dynamic, but allow the leave-taking to have served a good purpose for both of you. Do not allow resentment or fear or pain to keep you locked in this circumstance and in this moment. It is only a breath. It is only simply the ticking of the clock. It has no reality at all. Leave-taking of such a nature, though it be a return, must be allowed to grow, to expand, to soften. It seems as though all of you, when you are confronted with pain, hold to that pain as though it were sacred, as though you receive identity and verification from it. Let it go. You are not that pain. You are not that disappointment. You are not that fear. That is simply a wind that has blown by you. Do not seek your identification through trauma. Many of you have been taught to do so. Do not seek your identification at all. For the moment that you seek to define yourself, you freeze yourself in the moment of definition. And to freeze consciousness in its eternal creation is to deny the truth of that consciousness at that moment. To honor yourself through pain, to set a monument to disappointment, is that who you are? Is that who you want to be? Why, it is even risky to name yourself and to give yourself an address. For in some manner what you do is you say, that is who I am, I will be that name, and I will squeeze myself into that address. To give yourself a birth date squeezes yourself into time. Why do you do that to yourselves? Because once a year you are celebrated? You do not require such definition. It is only fear that says, I must surround myself with definition. Just for a moment, close your eyes. We will do an experiment. And just for a moment, to quiet your minds, let yourself become gently aware of your breathing again. Let yourself now be the breather with no name. And let yourself experience what that feels like. You have no name. And as if that were not exciting enough, you don't live anywhere. And watch what fear in the mind does with that as you sit. The breather in this moment with no name and no address. Let yourself experience the freedom of that. Heave a sigh of relief. You don't have to live up to the expectations of your name or your address. You are free. At the same time, you do not have a birthday. You have no age. Let yourself expand a little more. You don't have to be what 13, 20, 70, 90 is supposed to be. You can be you. Whatever that is. And when the mind says, well, who are you? Simply say to the mind, I am. I just am. And in my amness, I have to fit no structure. Because amness will not honor structure, because structure cannot possibly honor amness. And if someone is to ask you 10 minutes from now, who are you? Tell them who you are at that moment without structure. It will be delightful. I offer this to you as suggested homework for the process of freeing yourself from the illusory boundaries with which you struggle every minute of your lives. Who am I now? Ask yourself that at least once an hour. Who am I now? Not what is my name, where do I live, what do I do? of who am I? And take that valuable moment to free yourself of this illusion that you call home, self, planet. It will bring you back into balance. It will help you to maintain your equilibrium. When you are disturbed, when you are angry, ask yourself, who am I? And if a voice says, I'm angry, that's who I am. You'll say, no, that's not who I am. That's what I'm emoting at this moment, but who am I? Let yourself sit with this moment. Who are you now? In relationship to no one but self. For it is interpersonal relationship that requires behavior, it requires labels and structure. And at this moment, give yourself permission not to perform for anyone, not to fulfill anyone's expectations. Just let yourself be. If you could do this for an extended period of time, those who are ill will heal. But there would be no fear. Those who are confused will become clear. All of your so-called difficulties, restrictions, pains, sufferings in your life stem from your attempt to be other than who you are. In the name of love, yes, as children, but in the name of fear as adults. When did love become fear? The moment that love said, this is the way I must be in order to be loved. The moment love sought to be safe rather than to be in truth. Love does not have to be kept safe. Love is. It is never dangerous to love. Oh, I know, you will all say, Emmanuel, you should have been there. I was. And you were safe. Your task now as human beings is to move to the subtleties, to hear truly where fear speaks the language of love. For that is what makes you believe that you are not safe in your loving. Because it isn't loving, it's fear saying, I love. Subtle work you are to do. This is why I have been addressing the balancing. You have gone far beyond the obvious. You in this room have gone far beyond the obvious. You are working with subtleties now. You are in the higher grades of learning. Be aware of that. Let your discontent direct you to the truth. It is not a negative thing to be discontented. It is only negative when you cling to the discontent and refuse to move. For discontent is saying to you, things aren't right. Hear that voice. It is not dangerous to love yourself enough to say to the world and to those with whom you are involved, things aren't right. I'm not happy. I'm not content. I want change. That is a loving thing to say. For at that moment you release not only yourself from chains, but everyone else as well. You all have wings that you have brought with you. You've hidden them somewhere. Because it was an embarrassment when you were very young to believe that you could fly. And I believe without exception each one of you tried it and were laughed at. Of course you can't fly. Sit down and eat your breakfast. And in the name of love, you put your wings away and said, all right, if that's what they need. I'll forget I can fly and I'll sit down and eat my breakfast. But it's time now for you to begin to take upon yourselves the responsibility for who you really are. Beings who figuratively and therefore eventually literally can fly. But you must allow yourself enough room of unrestricted self-space to begin to practice. Wherever you are confined, wherever you are unhappy, wherever you are afraid, these are the areas that are requiring your attention now, or they would not be there. Again, it bears repeating, you did not become human in order to become incarcerated in your humanness. This is not your reality. It is your schoolroom. Everything in your world offers you opportunity for remembering, for growth, for adventure, for expansion, for love. So find the most painful circumstance in your life now in this moment and look at it a minute. And ask yourself, where can I put my self-love here? Where is self-love? Have I allowed it? Without fear, therefore without defense, without rejection, without anger, without revenge. Just self-love. What do I need here that I am not getting? What am I giving that I don't want to give? Who am I? It can be an interpersonal or interpersonal. It can be economical. It can be in the marketplace. It can be in your health. But it's a most important question. It is a most important gift. What am I doing I don't want to do in the name of my own self-love? And if the mind says, I haven't loved myself in so long, I don't know, tell the mind that this is not an area that it can serve you. That you are now speaking in your heart, and the mind must wait outside the door. Its tyranny is not welcome, for it serves fear. And allow the changes that this introspection will create. Allow them. You did not come to be frozen in one posture. You came to move, to expand, to create a new life with every breath. Let your history go. You don't need it. You know who you are. You don't have to define yourself by who you've been. That's not who you are. That is simply not who you are. At this moment, you hold all in this moment of history that will serve you and honor you. The rest is simply excess baggage that you have been convinced you must drag up the mountain with you. If you were never born to this moment, until this moment, who are you? Let yourself come to this moment with no history. I promise you something. When you master that, you will fall absolutely in love with yourself. For there is nothing within you that is not worthy of your absolute love and devotion, except what history has taken away. So the self-defining through the eyes of history does not help you at all. Okay.
It seems that that's really an appropriate ending for Emmanuel. Unless there's any last thing you would want to share with us rather than any more of the questions.
He's saying, I rather thought I went beyond the time. But since I do not require a watch in my present experience, you will forgive me. What to say, it will not be the last. There is never a final thing to say. There is only a next thing to say. I want to urge you all to believe in your capacity, in your right to reach beyond your minds, to touch the world of spirit in whatever manner you choose and that pleases you, to allow yourselves to know what you know, to believe what you believe, to love as you love, and to be who you are. Expand beyond your skins, beyond your histories, and beyond the expectations of others that you have allowed to chain you to remain less than who you are. Make room for your wings, my dear ones, and be blessed.
I hope you enjoyed this meeting with Emmanuel. Subscribe to our channel and you'll be the first to know when we upload any new materials from the Emmanuel archives.